Hello everyone, and it's time I did my racism in video games, or perceived racism in video games. Now, there's been a social justice warrior backlash in video games since, I'd say about 5 years, where they've been discussing not only sexism in video games, but racism in video games. Now, what they mean by racist is that there's a lack of ethnic minority video game characters, not necessarily as NPCs, but as playable characters. Now, is there a lack of playable characters who happen to be ethnic minorities? As a mixed race person, yes, there is, but that's not because the game devs are racist, that is because they are mostly white. And if we lived in a society that was, say, I don't know, mostly black, most protagonists would be black. If we were Asian, it'd be mostly Asian, like in Japan. Anyway, are video games racist? Well, let's have a look at two recent examples that have been released upon us by the social justice warriors as examples of racism in video games. And I think the most recent example has to be analysed first. Now, bear in mind, for these two examples, I have not played them, as it pains me to say, although in the case of one of the games I've been told it's best probably not to, but that is a tangent. So The Witcher 3, which has come out recently, has garnered a lot of praise by almost everyone. It's apparently a brilliant RPG and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Now, the social justice warriors on the other hand, liking the gameplay, and this is the people like Anthony Gies, the one that I did a video on recently, a couple of weeks back, where he literally put the game's score down about 2 or 3 points out of 10 because of the lack of people of colour, which I hate that term, by the way, but I can't help but use it because everyone's using it now and I don't know why I'm using it. And it should have been a 9 or maybe 8, maybe 10 out of 10, but because it had a lack of ethnic minorities, he gave it a 7, I think. Why is that allowed? How come having a lack of ethnic minorities decreases the score of a game in these rags, basically? That's what all they are, they're rags. And the simple matter is that these people are obsessed with race and they're going to see everything in that kind of black and white vision, whether it be sex or race. And the fact of the matter is, when you boil it down to it, The Witcher 3 is not racist. Why is that? Because, well, let's take a look at CD Projekt Red. CD Projekt Red is a Polish developer. They are European, like me, I guess. Although I'm not Polish, I'm British. So, they have made a game called The Witcher 3, Witcher 2, and of course The Witcher 1. And they are based on a very famous, well-known Polish fantasy series. And they are novels. And they are also based heavily on medieval Polish history. And the Tech Raptor guys said it best. They said that medieval Europe wasn't really known for its diversity. There wasn't a lot of ethnic minorities there at the time, and that's about 99% true. They did accidentally say that it's entirely white. That's not the case, especially in southern Spain and southern Italy. There were a lot of Arabs due to the Arab invasions of the Dark Ages, but that's just being very matter of fact and pedantic. But nonetheless, despite that, there wasn't an awful lot of diversity, so it was almost entirely white, if not entirely white. And what the social justice warriors are saying is, because the game is entirely white and based on a entirely white culture, that is inherently racist. But is it inherently racist? No. As someone who is part white, I don't think it is. And as someone who's also part Asian, no, I don't think it's racist. In fact, all the people that are playing The Witcher, apart from these social justice warriors, are probably thinking the same as me. It's not racist, it's just The Witcher. You're role-playing, it's based loosely on historical fact. It's not historically accurate at all. We're bringing in real-life issues into fantasy and video games. Video games and fantasy are video games and fantasy. They're not meant to show real life. They're not meant to represent real life. It's meant to be a fantasy, for God's sake, okay? These people, they don't seem to realise that. I mean, you've seen the feminist poetry person, Chavez, whatever she's called. She's saying that whenever a female NPC is hurt, she's hurt. You could tell that these people have no sense of reality whatsoever, no sense of historicity, of anything whatsoever. And they seem to be attacking white people, mainly because they, as white people, we all know that in Polygon, Kotaku, all the major games publications, they are almost overwhelmingly white and male. About 80% odd. I think it's like 87% male, 84% white or something. Or the two. Could be reversed. It wouldn't make a lot of difference anyway. So this is a lot of projection. They seem to self-loathe themselves and hate their own cultures for whatever reasons. So they're deciding to project it onto us. And basically saying that these games are racist because they don't have any ethnic minorities in it. And that's just stupid. There is no logical basis to this at all. I mean, if it was entirely black, no one would batter an eyelid. Or if it was entirely mixed race, no one would batter an eyelid. I wouldn't batter an eyelid. Because, you know, I don't look at race that way. I don't judge people based on their race. Not even fake people who are just pieces of code put together to make a representation of a human being. This is what we're debating over. People who do not exist. And we want a discussion about race in video games. Now, let me get to my second example, and this one has been used over and over and over again. And recently the PBS show on YouTube, you know, that guy with the stupid hipster glasses, he's decided to wade in and has used Resident Evil 5 as an example. Now, Resident Evil 5 is set in Africa. You know, Africa, where the overwhelming majority of people are black. And apparently, because Chris Redfield, the main character, is going out around shooting black zombies, that is racist. How is that racist? You see, whenever you ask them, they can't actually give you a good reason other than he is shooting black people. But I can counter that and just say, well, these are zombies trying to attack him. And he has to defend himself. It's not like he wants to shoot them. If you know anything about Resident Evil, you know that Chris Redfield starts off as a police officer and then joins an organisation dedicated to eradicating the zombie threat. Yes, this is an actual plot point of the Resident Evil series. It gets a lot crazier than that. And basically, if he was there to kill black people, he would have killed his partner. You know, the black woman that follows him throughout the game. It's not like he wants to kill these people. It's known very well throughout the series that none of these people want to kill the people they're killing. But they have to defend themselves because these are zombies that have been infected against their will by a massive corporation, Umbrella Corporation, who are actually a Western, white-owned corporation, I might add, you know? Just to add a bit more context. So, is Resident Evil sexist? No. Does these two examples, admittedly a small sample base, mean that video games are racist or sexist? Because Witcher 3's also had some sexism accusations. No. In fact, I'd wager that 99% of all video games are not racist. I'm sure there are racist games out there, but to say that all video games are racist because they don't have enough ethnic minorities, that's just wrong. And then these social justice warriors are trying to force game devs to include more people who are black and Asian and mixed race and whatever, and against their will. This means that these people are willing to take away freedom of expression and these game devs' rights to make their own games in order to justify and spread their own agenda. This is not an honest plea from these social justice warriors. They are only after one thing: to project their own insecurities onto us, to push their agenda, whatever that may be. I'm still trying to work that out because some of them are so crazily logical, it's hard to know what they really want. Other than they just seem to, like a zombie, blindly push this dogma against us, and we're trying to push back against that. So, no, video games are not racist. And to say that they are is ludicrous because there's no evidence to suggest that. There are some poorly performed, maybe poorly represented characters that are maybe ignorant, but they're not racist or prejudiced. Case in point, you know, that Deus Ex NPC, the black woman who's rummaging around in a bin and Jensen goes up to her and she gives him information. That's apparently racist. Now, it's uncomfortable and it's kind of silly, but there are some people who are kind of like that, I'm afraid. You know, just look on World Star Hip Hop or any other stupid YouTube video, you'll see it. They do exist. She's meant to represent the underclass, you know. As poorly thought out as she is, she does have someone out there who exists. Now, she's not a racist character, I'd say. I can't fathom why it's racist. I can see why people can perceive it as racist, but I don't think it's inherently racist. It doesn't come from a bad place. She just happens to have been performed that way. And, you know, make it what you will. Maybe I'm just making excuses. So, in conclusion, video games are certainly not racist. They are certainly not sexist. These are people simply projecting their own insecurities onto their ideology in an effort to change the way video games are made. They want to control the only media that they have not yet got fully control of. This is just shaming tactics. These are people who are also just simply professional whiners. These are people who will never make a video game in their lives. And if they do, they don't make games, they make interactive fiction. Video games cannot be forced to be diverse. They simply have to evolve and become more diverse. As we've seen over the last 30 years, they've started off as more diverse as film and novels were when they were in their genesis, and now video games are becoming ever more diverse. And that was already a trend. There were already characters out there who weren't white or who were female or, you know, whatever. It was coming along nicely. It was a nice evolving trend that was going to carry on and no one would have noticed. But now these people have come along and they're trying to force it, and it's going to ruin people's freedom of expression. It's going to send back, if it's not already set back, attitudes towards race 50 years. I mean, these characters will no longer be judged on their actions and themselves as their personalities and their characterizations, so it'll just be their race. That's all people will see, and we can't allow that. We fought hard in the 50s and 60s to end that. We can't allow that to come back again. But we also cannot allow people to stifle creative freedoms and to try and control game developers. This has been CharmingMan93. Like and share the video, drop a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you later.